Let's talk more about Apple and other tech stocks as the NASDAQ remains near record highs. Joining us now, Deepwater Asset Management's Gene Munster. Still waters run deep.
In fact, right on, Joe.
Yeah, right? You've heard that. So you already, the latest, you just heard us talking about Apple. Apple's had a nice rebound. Do you expect that to continue?
I do, Joe, and ultimately it's going to come down to growth rate next year. Street's looking for 5% just on this upgrade pool. We've talked a long time, the last 3 years, about this massive pool that came in 2021. iPhone surged up 37%. A year ago, I was predicting a super cycle, and I define that as iPhone growth going from flattish to plus 10%. In fact, it's going to end that period up about 2%. So I was wrong on that. But one thing that we started to see in the June quarter is that the iPhone started to re-accelerate, going from up a couple percent in March to adjusting for the pull forward and tariffs. It was up about 10%. And there was nothing significant that came out in the product. What it was that upgrade pool from a couple years ago. Now, I understand that this is not exciting to talk about, but the substance of this, again, comes down to, is Apple in a better place to exceed expectations? And I think the answer is absolutely. And then keep in mind, too, is that we're probably going to see this new iPhone Air next September. This is not going to be their premier phone, but it's going to be something that is going to appeal to kind of that $800 price, something a little bit more aesthetic, thinner phone, lighter phone. And typically when they come up with a new hardware piece, that has a positive impact on growth. And so I'm optimistic. One last point, Joe, of course, is that what's going on with AI and some of the hardships that Apple has had here. Wall Street Journal, Tim Higgins has a nice piece today. He talks about that Apple's just in a tough spot when it comes to AI. Effectively, their privacy-first position limits what they can do ultimately with AI. And I tend to have a different view on that. I think that they have a ton of information that they still can use and create unique insights around AI. And I'm optimistic about what they're going to show next year. So bar is very low is the punchline when it comes to AI. And I think when you put all of this together, I think Apple's going to be one of the top 2 performing Mag 7s over the next year.
Really? Okay. Do you, just on a broader issue, and we were talking about the Tim Cook in the Oval Office and the way things are, I don't know if you can extrapolate, but things are different in the way things are being done. The Journal has a piece now President Trump wants an export tax and it talks, the front page piece about what Jensen Huang was faced with. He thought, you could do this, and that, and maybe you'd get the go-ahead to sell some chips in China. And it finally came down to almost what looks like an export tax on NVIDIA. Do you have any problem with, all tech companies, Apple's had its own issues with what it's allowed to do, what it's not allowed to do with China. Is this the right way to handle it, you think, Gene? Is it in, is it state-sponsored capitalism? Yeah. What is it?
Yes, that phrase, state-sponsored capitalism, that obviously catches my attention and has been kind of the center focus here. And my sense is that, the playbook is different. And, I want to step outside of the political. Appreciate you and Andrew's conversation earlier, but just stay outside of the politics here. The reality is this is where the ball lies, is that there is this tax. My question is, do companies ultimately like Tesla and Apple get wrapped up in this? And this has been focused obviously on AMD, NVIDIA. Some of the other chip players may be involved in this 15% revenue share, state-sponsored capitalism. But I wonder if it ends up kind of expanding from that. I think it does set a unique precedence, something that personally I don't like that. I think that companies should just kind of do what they want to do. But I think from the perspective of NVIDIA, to have the White House as one of your backers, that's a powerful ally, and right. In some respects, it's 15% of 15%. That's another piece to keep in mind here.
Gene, we got to run, but the piece that I'm with you on the longer term implications. I don't know if you're Jensen, what you're supposed to do when the president says to you 15%. If he says no, if he says, I think no for the greater good, because I don't want Apple or Tesla or others to get wound into this whole larger geopolitical debate. And it is possible, I would imagine, that China at some point says, nope, we're not doing this with any of these companies anymore because you're not really this is not a capitalistic system. These companies are all part of some kind of U.S.-backed operation. And if that happens, the whole ecosystem breaks. But I don't know if you're Jensen or one individual, whether you can be the one to stand up and say, I'm not doing this, because you think, at least in the short term, this is actually a very powerful thing to do.
I think he does have the power to do that. I mean, his chips are basically powering the world, where the world is going effectively. And so I think it's always one center of a North Star for me is people act in their best interests. And I think we see that today.